In this video, I'm going to peel back the layers of how I make YouTube videos from start to finish. Hi there guys, welcome back to me, David, Talking Tech. In this video, I'm going to show you how I go about making these YouTube videos, everything that I do to get the video out onto YouTube. We're going to start in Audition and the effects track that I use to make the audio sound good. We're going to Premiere Pro, the basics of cutting, editing, adding some color and exporting, including the export settings. I'll also be showing you what I do in Photoshop basically to create the thumbnails and even go through to YouTube Studio and sorting out your end cards as well. Everything you need to know about making a YouTube video using Adobe Audition and Premiere Pro is in this video. So if that's of interest to you, sit down and enjoy. First of all, we're going to start off talking about Adobe Audition. So this view gives you a fairly good view of what's in front of me when I'm working on videos. I'll take as many different angles of the studio as possible so you see as much as possible. This is kind of what's in front of me. So generally speaking, the camera is about another 2 foot further back into the corner of the studio when I'm shooting video. The camera I use is my iPhone 12. I've got the Filmic Pro app on it. I shoot in 10-bit Vlog 3. And the way I get that footage from the camera is by using a lightning cable into the back of the studio display and using image capture. So that's how I get the video off of there, and we'll be showing you how I colour up at least the image from and the video I take from the camera later on in Premiere Pro. So that's the camera side of it. I have 2 mics. This is the YouTube mic. It's a Rode Shotgun Rode NTG4 Plus is the mic that I've got. It's got some basic roll-off on it, some basic settings on it, very easy to use. The big difference between the Shotgun and this AT2035 large diaphragm condenser mic is that this, of course, is in very close proximity to my mouth. So that's where you get that lovely, warm, rich, deep sound from. It's got a Rycote pop filter in front of it because obviously I want to stop the plosives coming out of it. And there was a big difference. I've been so used to this. I'd used this mic for 6-7 years and I still use it now on the podcast, the Minus 16 podcast. When I switched over to the Shotgun mic, of course, it's in a much more open environment. It's in a much more open room. Now, even this room is well sound treated. It's not soundproofed, but it's well sound treated with Art Novium, which you can probably see behind me and to one side of me, and there's some just to the other side of the studio as well. So it gives a very nice, deep, flat sound in here. I like the sound of it, but still, when you're using a Shotgun mic, it is just more out in the open. It is more ambient. So I do everything I can just to shut down as much as I can behind the mic when I'm shooting for video, and I'll try and show you what I do. It's a little bit of a workaround, but it does work well because I noticed even in this room there was too much reflection when I didn't cut the back of the room off behind this mic. So this mic is generally standing just out of frame. It's as near to my mouth and my head as I can possibly make it, but just out of frame when I'm shooting. These 2 mics both go into the Yamaha MG12-4, which has got some lovely pre's. I run some EQ on it as well. They both run into different channels, so I can just pull a fader up to use whichever mic I need. So if I'm working on YouTube, it'll be off one channel, podcast off another channel. The Yamaha goes into a Focusrite 2i2, a new one, and that Focusrite in turn connects up to the MacBook Pro, which you can see here. This is the 16-inch M1 Max MacBook Pro with 4 terabytes of storage and 32 units of unified memory. So that session you can see recording there, that is the session for this video. So I called direct into Audition with the audio, and then as I told you, I take the footage from the video. That goes via image capture. I then save that into a folder that's on the desktop. I do all the editing off of the desktop at the moment because it's so speed. The read-write speeds off the desktop and the internal storage is so much superior that I work off the desktop until I'm finished, and then I archive it. So then I've got the basic elements of what I need. I've got the audio, I've got the video, then I sync them up and work on them in Premiere Pro. But if I have I'll move the camera around a little bit now so you just get a closer look at the desk as well, and I'll try and show you what goes on there. This video gives you a pretty good idea of what I've got on my desk most of the time when I'm working. If we start at the back there, you can see one of the pair of studio monitors that I've got. Whenever I'm checking audio and referencing audio, be it for a podcast or for the videos, I always start off listening in those studio monitors before going over to the Bayer DT900 Pro X's open back headphones that you can see to the left of the desk there. Then we come on to the Yamaha MG12C mixer that I mentioned. It's got some lovely analog pre's in there. A little bit of EQ goes on there. That in turn goes through to the Focusrite, And before we head into the Mac, there's a couple of boxes you need to look over on my rack over there. The bottom box at the bottom, the silver box, is a TSL PPL meter, and that was from my radio days to make sure that I wasn't too hot and to make sure that my audio was at the correct level. And then above that, we've got a BSS Dynamics processor. I've got it set for compression. I'm running 3:1 compression on there, so the audio that comes out of Adobe Audition is already compressed with very little for me to do. Carrying on, you can see one Mac there, which is the MacBook Pro M1 Max, 32 gigs of unified memory, 4 terabytes of storage, and the studio display to the other side. The iPad that you can see there, I only use that to reference the output of the camera from Filmic Pro. It gives a remote app so I can have the camera, which in my case, of course, is the iPhone 12. That's in one corner of the room, but I can monitor and set the frame up looking at the iPad. And that's pretty much everything that goes on in this studio. That's all the items that are on my desk. So what I thought I would show you next is how I process the audio in Audition. So this is the audio that you just saw recording a few moments ago. I've recorded it straight into Audition, as you know. The markers I just put there so that I know roughly where my edits are, which bits of audio are good or bad. It just helps me a lot in the editing phase over in Premiere Pro. One of the things I would suggest you do is have yourself a folder set up on the desktop. Now this is my master folder, and in there I've just got different subfolders of all the different things that I think that I'll need for a video. So that's if I'm getting stock from Adobe, for instance, just some B-roll shots. That's where I put the Audition audio if I'm using something straight from Adobe Audition, such as this. That's where the A-roll will go. That's audio such as any beds of music that I use. These are all already loaded on the desktop, so I just pull this folder up every time, and everything I need for the basic get-go on a project is there. My title roll is there. That's what you see at the beginning of the videos, which I think will play if I do that. So that's what you see at the beginning of the video. So that's always in this folder on the desk. All I do is grab the folder, rename it, as you can see here. This is the one I'm making now, making YouTube videos. It's just a copy of that folder, but all the basic assets I need are in there. At the moment, for instance, I'm working on ScreenFlow, so this B-roll footage will go into that folder when it's recorded. So the first thing I do in here is run an effects rack. And the effects rack is actually set up under Rode because generally, of course, that's what I'm using, and that's where all the video goes into. So just having a look at what I do in here. NS1 is a noise reduction plugin from Waves. It's a very, very simple one driver just to move up and down. The more you move it up, the more you're killing any background noise. It's fairly good in here, the sound, so there's not too much background noise. I've got that set at 40%. Dynamics is set up for some auto gating, so it's literally an open and shut gate. So when I'm stop speaking, it will cut in, and as soon as I start speaking, it will open up again. It's just another way of cutting out any background noise. Denoiser is, again, as you're gathering, I like to be thorough. That's the native denoiser app that you'll find in Adobe Audition. I have running there just on one of their presets. The de-esser is, again, their native de-esser. I've left videos before on the channel about how you set a de-esser up, but that just gets rid of some of the sibilant sounds. It's not dramatic, but it helps. I have -45 set on there just to help reduce any harsh sibilant noises. This is another Waves plugin, which is basically a vocal compressor. It just makes the voice sound a bit richer and thicker. And that's a final compressor that I use just to make sure that the waveform is nice and even. Now you can see off of this mic that I'm using, the 2035 Audio-Technica mic, it's pretty flat and compressed already because the fact that I'm running it through a rack compressor that is on the desk that the mics run through. So it's not in bad shape anyway. But if I just run that for you, that will take just a few moments to compress this audio. And it's going through the whole rack here, so it's adding in 3 levels of noise reduction, it's adding in a little bit of de-esser, the vocal compressor basically is what it is, and then the tube model compressor at the end. I just like using the tube model compressor because it's that little bit richer and it's more analog in a sound, and also I kind of just understand how to use it well. So I run all of these processes every time, but it's set up as a rack effect in Adobe Audition. So once again, it's all to do with automation. Every time I pull in the audio from the Rode, I just pop it into here, run this rack effect, and that's what we're left with. So now you can see it's being made a lot more quiet. But what I do next is then taking it from the file up there, I run it in through match loudness. I always work while I'm editing everything at -23 LUFS. So I'll simply run that. That will then take it up to -23 LUFS. And I double check that by using this amplitude statistics window, which then if I scan it, it should give me a reading of -23. There you go. Yeah, bang on -23. So I know that that is now compressed and ready to use. And I will then pop that into the folder on the desk. I always keep the original, which is what you can see there. I've already saved it, desk 1. This I just do an _EQ. I then go to the folder that were on the desktop there, into audio. I've already got the original audio there in case anything ever goes wrong, so I haven't done anything to that. Actually, audio straight recorded into Audition. This is the version with EQ that I will use on the actual project, and then I save it. So that is the audio now processed and ready to use in Premiere Pro. Next, I'll show you what I do with the video that we've just grabbed from the phone. So with the audio done, it's time to get the video ready now, which means Premiere Pro. I mentioned that I use the native image capture app on the Mac. That's our video there. You just tell it where you want it to go and download it. I have saved it into this folder here, of course, and it will be going into the A roll. That was where our video file has gone. So now it's a case of opening up Premiere Pro and getting a project ready, which is super simple and even easier when you've got that pre-made project folder sitting on your desktop. So the first thing you need to do is make a new project. If I just call this PP for Premiere Pro, then tell it where you want it to go. So if I just look on the desktop and find that, and this will go into the projects folder. This means I can go back and edit it at any time because all the assets are going to be in one location. After that, it's create, and that will make us the timeline ready to use. So then it's just a case of bringing in the main elements that you know you're going to be needing from the get-go. So in our instance, I will obviously bring over the movie file. I'll bring over the audio file, which is the EQ'd version. I would bring over then the title asset. So I've got my intro title asset there that you see at the beginning of the videos, and also I'd bring over the logo, which is the little quote marks you see in the bottom left-hand corner generally. Probably bring over some of the music as well that I sometimes use as a bed. And that's kind of the main assets that I know. Oftentimes by this point I've got images saved down, which is flat images, stills, which would go as B-roll in one of the other layers in a little while's time. And if I've taken any video or taken video offline, then that goes in the B-roll folder. So I'm quite organised. I know where everything's going to be. And now it's a case of really just beginning to build the timeline up. So if I bring the movie folder over first, movie file over first, I'll bring over our audio because you know they're not from the same source. Now, I've put those out of line for a reason. The simple way of synchronizing in Adobe Audition is to hit synchronize, make sure audio is checked, and just watch these two files move. They will sync up with the audio. So that is now in place. What I would do is now you know you've got your audio in sync is, in fact, I'm just going to mute this to make sure it doesn't interfere with our video here. With that, if you just highlight those two tracks, right click, unlink, delete the audio that came over with the video, and then by holding down the option and the up arrow, that's moved it up in the safe same place. Highlight, link, you've now got your video ready. So what I would do, for instance, then, if I know that that is more or less as we're getting going, obviously you'll be cutting and slicing and moving things around, but the only other things I do, I would add the music bed in. Here, there's a couple of little tricks I can show you with that highlighted. And if I was going to full screen here actually, and pick out the audio editing space for a music bed like that, make sure it's highlighted, music, loudness, if you're using it as a bed, auto match takes it to -25. I always take off another -16 dB there as well. That's now a decent loudness to work as a bed. If you want to alter the duration of it as well for the length of whatever video, say we reckon we've got a 12-15 minute video, you would make sure the audio is highlighted, check the duration box. It is just going through its analysis at the moment. And once that is done, all you would do is put in 15 minutes in there. And that, as you can see, has remixed it. It's very clever. You wouldn't know. It's virtually on beat. I promise you, you wouldn't know. Again, I'm just going to mute that out so it doesn't interfere with our audio here on the video. So that's kind of what I would do for a bed with the logo that you saw a moment ago. If I go back to editor, that's just a simple case of dragging over. In fact, before I do that, let me just add some more layers and you'll see why in a moment's time. First of all, I'm going to add in some adjustment layers because those will be used for colouring up, which I do in a very, well, a self-taught way, but it kind of works. So just make some adjustment layers for yourself. They just need to be long enough to, at this stage, to cover the entire video. And then by holding down Option and dragging up, you can just duplicate those. Now, what I would do, say, with the logo, in my case, I would bring that over. And then it's just a case of resizing. So you can see at the moment it's very, very small. So with the effect controls, I would just take it up in size and then you just move it to wherever you want. That's very simply how you move things around in Premiere Pro. So that would be the logo in place there. And then another track above there possibly is where I would add on any other B-roll or videos that I'm going to add throughout the course of the editing. So to the colouring. Now, as you are aware, I use Filmic Pro, and if you go to their website, you can download some LUTs. And if we go into the colour space, the first thing I do, working in the basic correction space here at the top, I've got the first adjustment layer highlighted. I'll pick out their D-Log V3. That's basically done the work. I hit auto. I would just tweak the blacks to make sure they're not too deep on the lumetri there, so not quite bleeding off. And the same with whites, you don't want anything bleeding off too much at the top. That's pretty much it done. I told you I'm not too technical, it's just what I've taught myself, and it looks quite good at the output. The second layer, if you go back to effects and look for the lumetri presets, under technical, there is a 10-bit adjustment there, which I add. Again, auto. Same thing with the blacks, look like they're okay. That seems okay actually with auto. And then finally, something I've just started doing is going into the creative tab and adding just a little touch of saturation. And that's the way that I colour up and add elements to the video. That's how it looked when it came straight off the phone in 10-bit vlog. And that's how the video will be exported. Audio-wise, one or two little tricks I've learned there. This is not for the music, this is for my voice. If we go to the editing space, sorry, the audio space, I will make sure always to add on the multiband compressor, and there is a wonderful preset in there called broadcast. It just adds some nice glue and thickness to your voice. I add that in at this point. I know for my workflow here, I'm going to reduce it by minus 5.5 dB. As I mentioned a little earlier on, I like to work when I'm editing to give myself plenty of headroom at minus 23 LUFS before exporting. I'll cover that in just a moment's time. Then I add myself a loudness meter, so as I am editing I can see that I'm around about the right loudness. This is already set to minus 23 here, which you can see is simply adjusted in there. And then reset it and you will just start to play, and as it begins to play, the meter will then begin to work and you'll see it begins to, well, I've got it muted off at the moment, but that is where you would see that it is finding its levels. So you can just monitor what loudness levels you're working to. So that is how I'd get the video ready to edit. Talking about then actually finally exporting the video, dragging the playhead back to the beginning, I mark it with an in, going to the end of the video, it would be an O, and then what I do is a pre-render under sequence, renders into out. That will go through a process of rendering all the clips you've got in there before we get to the export, which I've found just seems to work a little bit better. I've had less glitches and it just seems to do the job quite well and does save you some time at the back end as well. Once that has done its job of working through there, then I would go to File and Export, or Command M for media. And here I've got myself a preset set up and I'll show you how I go about it. The title name doesn't matter at all. That is where you choose where it's going to go. So for us, on what I'm working with here, it'd be into the final video folder. And you want to be in H.264. Then under the video tab, I'm going to choose my preset here. The only things I've really gone through and checked are that it's in HD, Ultra HD 4K, 24-bit is what I shoot at, and you can change these simply by unticking. Progressive, square, don't alter those. I make sure that we render at maximum depth here in this studio. Also, I use the maximum render quality as well. I use software encoding, takes a little bit longer, but seems to give better results. I have a high setting there, 5.2 there, and then it's here, I have it set at constant bit rate, not variable bit rate. and anywhere between 75 and 90 here seems to work for YouTube without making the file too big. The more you add to this, the bigger that file would become. And that's all I alter under video, but then the only other settings that are altered at all, if I just close that one down, are under the effects, and I want it to go out to the correct loudness for YouTube, which is -14. So I use the ITU standard, set it in there to -14, and we're good to go. Then it's a case of hitting export, and the file will be exported. Takes around about, for a 10 gig file, folder like this, or file like this, it would take around about 10 to 12 minutes on this particular M1 Max MacBook Pro. And that is how I basically set the audio up, sync the audio with the video in Premiere Pro, and then export. So hopefully that's given you a few tips and clues along the way to save you some of the sleepless nights that I've had. And the one other quick thing I was going to show you was roughly about thumbnails, very quickly into Photoshop, and then I'll show you a little bit in YouTube Studio about how to schedule your video for output. So just those two other elements I was going to very briefly touch on. You need to create yourself a thumbnail for YouTube. The idea of a thumbnail being, of course, you want people to click on it and come through. I've had some success, a recent, not particularly good success, but I don't know if that's all to do with my thumbnails or not. But the idea of a thumbnail obviously is to be catchy and punchy, and being a graphic designer by trade, I set quite a lot of store. This wasn't necessarily one of my finest, but I struggled trying to find the right imagery to go with the new iOS and what I was talking about in the video. But this is their CarPlay idea, so I just managed to get this image from Apple's website. I then decided to add some text. I like white text, and it seems to work because, don't forget, the images can often be very small on a phone. If you're looking to add a stroke to text in Photoshop, all you need to do is to click on the layer and pick up stroke, and then you can find the color that you want there. And if you're using the color, for instance, here, and you've got the color picker picked, you can select any of these colors from anywhere on the screen, and that would change the color of the stroke. I don't know if you knew about strokes, but strokes are something that people often use on Photoshop. I used a little bit of outer glow on there as well. And then it's just a case of being the right image size, which the image size for these thumbnails is 1280 pixels by 720 pixels. I export it as a PNG file. And again, it goes into that same project folder, so everything's together. All the assets for one video are all in the right place. If ever I need to go back and edit, they're all going to be there. I have changed thumbnails before now after a video has gone up, so it's super simple to do if you know where all of the assets are. And that would export into the project folder, and that would be how simple it is basically to create a thumbnail for yourself. The image size, as I say, is the crucial thing. You've got to make sure that it's 1280 by 720, and fonts, it's obviously completely down to you what fonts you use. If, like me, you're working with Creative Cloud, then you've got access to Adobe's fonts. You can have limitless fonts in there, and you can just go through the library and decide what fonts you want to use. Often I'll use a solid color as a background with a gradient fill in the middle. Can do all sorts. Photoshop obviously is a monster of a tool, and this is just scratching the surface with it, but that shows you the basics at least of creating a thumbnail for your YouTube video. And of course, the final part of getting your video out is exporting it to YouTube. You need to be in your studio space, go to create and upload videos. If you find your final video, it's a drag and drop situation. Now, before I've got to this point, I would have done my homework on what I want the video to be called, and also tags, which I'll get to in just a moment. So if you're in, I keep them in notes, for instance. So if I have it all typed out here, that would be the title that I use for the thumbnail that you saw a few moments ago. It's a case then of just copy and pasting. I've done all the hard work. Those are some hashtags. Some people believe in them, some don't. Not too sure if they make any difference, but hey, they're there now. All of this is pre-typed in notes, so the hard work is done for me by the time I get here. All of that is straight through, so I've got connections to my affiliate links, to the Discord server, to my podcast, anything I want to promote in the notes here. These are very important. That's what gives you those little breaks in the red bar at the bottom of the video. That's how you create chapters. And to make sure that you're using your chapters, I'll show you that in just a moment. Here is where you'd place your thumbnail. So again, I would go to the folder that we were working from for that particular video, find it in my thumbnail folder, the PNG file. There's the thumbnail. Playlist, they always say put it in at least 2 playlists, so I have playlists set up on my YouTube channel. That is done, and then you want to make sure that it's not made for kids. That's very important to have that ticked for age appropriation. And if you're paid, obviously you would tick that. Uncheck automatic chapters. You have put your chapters in by giving it timestamps up here. That's those are what will create chapters for you. And here, again, I have another note made out with all the tags. So I use vidIQ, and I will go through using a vidIQ extension and find the various tags that I want to use by using their keyword inspector, and just simply copy and paste the tags into there. And you'll begin to get a score building up here as you load more and more content in to see how well you think it's going to do. These speak for themselves: where it was recorded, the date it was recorded, what kind of standard license you want, what category you want to fall under. And then you go through in there. I always, by the way, put in lifestyle. Again, I have that pre-typed on these notes here: lifestyle, sociology, and technology. That's so vidIQ can find me and put me in some kind of algorithmic space as well. This is an interesting one and caught me out for a little while. You know, you see those little bits at the top of the videos. If you want to watch another video, that happens in here. You would simply go through and find the point at the video that you wanted it to happen. So say you wanted it at that point, you would then click video, and you would just put in whichever video you want to promote at that point, save. That then puts in that video at that point of your new video and the end cards. Now, this is something that took me some time to work out. So now I want to add in a subscription button. If you want to subscribe to me, it's a simple case of drag and drop and drag this through to that time marker, so it kicks in at the spot where you want it to. Next, you want to say put in a video. So you would do that. You would choose a specific video rather than one that YouTube has chosen. Again, put it into the timestamp of the frame, drag it out fully so it kicks in at the same time. Save that. And then you can go through to the next area here, which is checking there's no copyright strikes, that you haven't used music that's got copyright attached to it, or video that's got copyright attached to it. And then it's a case of going public and schedule. You can check what times are best if you've got a particular time zone you want to work to, but that is trial and error. And then you would simply put in the date, put in the time, schedule, and your work's done. That is how simple it is to upload a video and add end cards as well. So pretty much we've gone through all of the elements in making a video. We've done the basic audio work, we've done the video work, I've shown you how to create thumbnails, and then equally I've shown you how to then export through YouTube Studio to get your video out there. So what are you waiting for? It's time to go and create, I say. So there you go, guys. That is it. That is how I make these videos. You know it all now. You know as much as I do. I'm not saying that's a lot, but everything I've learned over the last almost year in making these videos, I guess I've made 50 or 60 videos at this point, I've put into this so you can make videos quicker and try and learn some of the things that took me ages to learn just a little bit sooner than I did. I hope it's helped. Do let me know in the comments down below if there's anything I've missed. If there's anything you'd like me to cover in more detail, I really would love to help you. But if you've got a few spare moments, why don't you hang around, because I'm going to put a video up at the end talking about my first couple of days with Apple Silicon. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.